Thank you, Chair. I know it's your responsibility, I guess, to defend the president's budget, but I guess what surprises me is there's a substantial cut to the force structure of the Navy. You're going to retire 9 combat ships. The most recent was commissioned less than 2 years ago. So with fewer ships, is that right? All right. So with fewer ships, a combatant commander, how are you going to deal with any requests? I mean, it doesn't seem like we have fewer problems. I mean, you got Russia and what China's doing. So how are you going to deal with fewer ships? I mean, are you going to just send fewer ships to request? Is there some way you're going to make them work longer, which is very difficult to do? So how are you going to do this? I know your job is you have to defend the administration's decision.
Yes, sir. It certainly, the number of ships will increase the risk to meeting the COCOM's requirements, right? We never meet 100% of the COCOM's requirements, but I'll turn it over to the Admiral to give more of the specific, look at that.
So in looking at specifically the LCS, that ship was designed or thought about in 2002, over 20 years ago, and the world has changed. And when we looked at the LCS, it's not that it has no military value. It has less military value in a high-end fight with China in the Pacific. And when you look at all the bills we had to pay, and we look where our priority investments in some of our weapons, between conventional prompt strike, which should deliver in the middle part of the decade on DDG-1000, the investments we have to make in LRASM and JASM, other investments we have to make in our unmanned systems. If we were to buy back those LCS, our estimate it would be $4.2 billion inside the FYDP. And we believe that those resources are better spent on high-end capabilities that we're going to need to fight and win. And some of those investments deliver inside the decade, in the decade of concern.
Do you feel comfortable that that you have the resources to be able to do when you watch what China is doing, expanding their Navy? You look at the expectation we're going to be able to defend Taiwan. You look at all these problems. Do you really believe you're going to have the capability to be able to do the job you're going to be asked to do?
I would talk to the CNO's NAV plan, which is a revision will come out here shortly, which in it there's a NAV plan implementation framework that describes in concert with distributed maritime operations, which is how we must fight in the Pacific. What are the investments that we need to make in terms of how we shoot, how we intend to shoot from multi-domains and from our long-range fires, how we maneuver, not just in terms of physical space in maneuvering in the domains, but how we maneuver in the electromagnetic spectrum to deny, deceive, delay our opponent. How are we going to resupply? How are we going to defend, terminal defense for our ships, and looking for other means other than missile on missile, which is a cost-imposing strategy on ourselves. We have to come up with different solutions. And then the investments we have to make in all the enablers, in our networks and Project Overmac, and moving information around the task force differently. How unmanned systems are going to be force multipliers across the domains, whether in the air, on the surface, or undersea. And then live virtual constructive investments to making sure our people, our sailors that are going to be operating forward can actually use those weapon systems to their design limits and beyond. And then artificial intelligence. What are the specific use cases we need to go after to deliver those capabilities, those software, those algorithms, and the bottom line is to drive simplicity down to the tactical edge. That is in the CNO's NAV plan. Those are some of the priority investments that we're going after, and the reason, because we are a multi-domain force that works from the seabed to space, and we have to be able to produce effects across all of them.
But do you believe you're going to have the resources to be able to do the missions that you anticipate we're going to have?
As always, we will have more requirements than resources, and within this budget, we will make do with the resources we have to be able to fight and win.
This morning we heard at another Armed Services Committee that there's testimony that we could save 30 to 50% of the money that DoD spends on procurement. Do you believe that? And what are y'all doing to try to get some of that savings so we can allocate the money to make our military big and lethal?
In the essence of time, I think we have to drive out cost across everything we do.
All right. Thank you.
Senator King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First,
Mr. Stefani, I want to compliment you. These hearings aren't always about compliments, but both houses asked for reports about the transition to DDX, and you issued two, one to the House, one to the Senate. They were excellent, succinct, clear, written in plain English, and I think very important. And Madam